People say use sniper tools. It's like, well, that can help in theory, but people are still going to shill. If they have the intent of shilling an auction, it doesn't matter who else is involved, what sort of tools, sniper tools they're using or not using. They're gonna shill it. And you can, if you use the browser version of eBay, you can drill into, if it's not a private auction, which sometimes there are private auctions where the identities are not disclosed, even though you can't really figure out too much about the identities anyways. You can click into the bidders, the winning bidders percentage of activity that he's done with that seller, right? So that can help. You can look at their feedback rating to see if they're like under 100 or under 200 these days. Like there's a lot of shilling accounts that have over 200 feedback, unfortunately. But that doesn't protect you, because what if this person, the first circumstance, what if this person is not just shilling all of the items for this account, they're shilling a specific player across all accounts. So the percentage of business he's done or shilling he's done with this one selling account might still be small. It might still be the first time he's done it that month. I think you can look over the last 30 days or 90 days with regards to how much activity they've done. So yeah, man, like I got stuck with a bunch of Juan Franco cards that I was trying to get rid of pre-news of the scandal, because they kept on getting shelled up by, I suspect, the same person using multiple accounts. And I was trying to sell stuff through my own account. I was trying to sell stuff through PC Sports Cards, and they kept on getting relisted. And it was annoying and frustrating. And there's like certain known cards of certain known players. I know Pat Mahomes. It's rampant. It's crazy. And it's sad, because even though at the end of the day, like a lot of these pricing tools remove that data from their database, I think Alt might do it a little bit quicker than maybe some of the others. Have maybe stronger processes around that and automation. People, if it's a highly liquid card that sells a lot, so an example could be a 2011 Topps Update Mike Trout, like that card allegedly peaked at like over $6,000. And if that card sells 3 to 5 times in a PSA 10, if that card sells it sells like between 10 to 20 times per week, which it was doing during the peak, and I forget if this was mid or late 2020 or early 2021, then people are going to act on that information. What was the last sale, or what was the average of the last 3? So before people publicly can make an opinion, or data tools can dismiss this information and remove it from their database, people are already acting on the new fake comps. And that causes real comps based on fake comps, and this whole like artificial manipulation of pricing for cards that are transacted a lot. And cards that aren't transacted much, sellers that sell them in auction, against like reluctantly doing so because they need capital, might have a sort of regret that sets in, like, this is probably not getting the attention that I wanted. I probably should have sold it through some other means. Maybe I already got some money in between that I wasn't expecting since I started listing this. I don't need it as much. And they have regret, and they're more likely to shill or ask their friends to shill a card that's illiquid. So it's liquid cards, it's illiquid cards, and it's just gotten worse since the market's tanked, to be frank. So yeah, man, it's tough.
And you talk about a lot of, like, Phil, the stuff you're talking about is like human behavior and its intent, right? And then that stuff is really difficult to detect. It's impossible to detect, because we don't know what someone's thinking on the other side of that keyboard at that given moment. How many of those people are doing that? Could it be nefarious enough where you actually have somebody being asked to do something like you just said? Or is it just somebody who's like, gosh, I really want this card now, but the next morning they don't want the card, or 3 days later they're like, something happened, some material thing happened in their life, or like, I can't get it, right? It could be that innocent, right? It could be that innocent. It could be something that just, I wanted it, I can't afford it anymore. What do I do? But now I've jacked up the price. Someone else has to overcome me, even though I don't really want it anymore. There's so many things, and that's what's difficult. And I've talked about, and I'm talking about this in my own episodes. I don't know how I just don't know how you police it. It's impossible, because it's human intention and we can't detect that. I'll caveat this with Bowman Chrome, because I know we're big Bowman Chrome people. The Bowman Chrome market the prospecting market in general, it's like you're putting a penny and you're putting a coin in a slot machine. You know you're doing that. You better be aware you're doing that. No one's going to feel bad for you when you lose out on prospecting. Everybody should know at this point you're taking gambles. You're risking. It is what it is. You're hoping it works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. You're not blaming anybody for that. It just is what it is. I mean, in that world, in the prospecting world, I mean, I guess you can cross it over to football and basketball and and hockey and all that, but I don't know enough about it. Centering it on baseball, because that's what we are, baseball people. The Bowman Chrome prospect community kind of gets it, like, well, I tried and it didn't work, and that's what you hit it or you don't hit it. It is what it is. So, but I'm talking about just in general, the whole auction space, Golden, Alt, Heritage, Memory Lane, Robert, keep going. How can we trust that we're involved if we're bidding on a card that we want to keep? How can we trust that price that we're buying it at is a true price for that card? Other than, you do all your research for comps, but for that moment in time, how do we trust that? I just think it's impossible.
Yeah, and it's becoming more prevalent, like you're mentioning, outside of eBay with some of these other third-party auction houses, which for me, like I've purchased through these websites. I don't know how to look out for potential shilling activity through those platforms. I'm used to doing it through eBay. And still, you'll never know. You'll have a good idea at the end of the day, but you'll never know for sure. So then you have to worry about, well, if I won this auction, you might not win it, which could be, probably a more acceptable outcome for you than getting bid up on it by magnitude of a few $1,000s, maybe more, depending on the card, right? But with eBay, you have the ability to talk to the seller and reason with them if you've won the auction, but you're still relying on them. I don't know if the third party of eBay is going to really understand and really side with you as a buyer. Like, how can you prove that you were shill bid? And at the end of the day, they want the higher commission from you, and
right, it's really hard.
And there's repercussions for people that don't pay on eBay. Well, at least for people that have established accounts. I don't know what happens to all the smaller accounts that kind of seemingly never go away, never get suspended. But and with eBay, you do have, I guess they're trying to, do the automatic payment on auctions. Maybe they're starting at a certain dollar amount for certain accounts, but still you've got people, you're working with people's credit cards that have maxes. It could range from, sure, like there could be credit cards out there with maxes of $100,000, 50,000, 35,000. But there could also be credit cards out there with $3,000 maximums. So how do you deal with that? In the case of the whole locking in your credit card and an auto payment pending that you win the auction, right? But yeah, these other sites, man, I've been hearing it more and more with Alt, with whether it's shilling or shady behavior like PWCC, Golden, etc. I don't know how to protect myself from that. It makes me want to stay away from those platforms, to be honest.
I honestly, between you and I think that is what is standing in the way from this space becoming a legitimate thing. I think that is standing in the way. It seems very Mickey Mouse to me. Very Mickey Mouse. The fact that someone can come in with a pocket full of money and go, all right, I'm going to buy this card. I've done all my due diligence. I'm going to buy this card, but I don't know for certain if I buy from an auction, which is, technically the best way to buy the card on demand for the price that it is selling for at that moment in time based on the eyeballs on it. I can't trust the authenticity of that transaction. That's a problem. That's a big problem. I know people think I'm depressing when I talk about cards these days, but I'm sorry, that's a problem. Look at our market right now. And there's people that are struggling to pay their bills. No one's going to take extracurricular money and go, well, I hope it's okay, when they see all these different things coming out of our hobby space going, oh, this guy's shilling this guy's he's bidding on his own cards, this guy, this sale was illegitimate. This is a known issue within the hobby. Major companies have this issue, and they've tried to combat it, but they can't. It's not that they're not trying. They're trying, but they still can't. I just feel like that is standing in the way from this hobby becoming, and this space becoming, and being taken more seriously, I think. It's just me.
Right. Unregulated market. Like imagine shopping for a house and like going off of comps
Right.
that were fake.
Exactly. Think about
Like
that.
they were just set up there to fool you and to manipulate the market. And
That could destroy your life. That could destroy your life, Phil. Like destroy your family.
and
Anyway.
with the stock market, to be fair, even some regulated markets have some shady behavior, market manipulation, spoofing, manipulation of precious metals and through the derivatives contracts. And
There is.
but for the most part, even if you're dealing with big whales, institutional buyers, hedge funds, like the transactions that are showing actually happened, right? That activity is real. Money did get exchanged in those cases versus with cards, who knows? And it's not just the people that really are desperate and really need the money and got wiped out with, the post-pandemic crash. It's business owners. It's just shady people in the hobby. It's people that are probably well capitalized that are doing this and have a good system for it. Because it's happening on ultra high-end stuff. So if they have a vested interest in that stuff to stay up because they have a copy of that or something similar, maybe a different variation. So that's how you know that it's not just the little guys that are doing this.
And I don't know. I feel like there's no teeth in our hobby. There's no teeth. You can engage in this nefarious activity and behavior. What happens to you? You get shunned by the hobby. The crossover tells you you're a bad person. There's a few people that put you on their podcast and go, "You're bad." Tisk tisk tisk. Okay, I guess I'll just delete all my accounts and just go on with my life and move on after I've fleeced somebody for hundreds of thousands of dollars. No big deal. Moving on. I'm good. Like that doesn't happen in the stock market. That it's really difficult to get away from that, right? I mean, there's lots of different. I don't know. It's just something I feel like I know it's talked about a lot. I just feel like it's this big speed bump in the way from this hobby really taking off. That's just me.
Yeah, for somebody like me who, I got my own business thing in the hobby, somewhat public-ish profile in the hobby, I think it's important for the sake of better practices in the hobby, for the sake of more transparency for yourself, and to be a role model for others in using on Facebook. If you're doing a lot of Facebook transactions, use your real name, full name, use a face. Russia's not going to steal this information. Well, they might. Maybe I have to edit that out. It's important. Like with me, I'm using the same name on every platform. Filmington. I'm not creating, it's not a weird eBay ID that you can't trace back to me. Like that sort of stuff is how you build trust. When you start to have multiple accounts and have a shady Facebook name that has nothing to do with your real name, again, like Instagram, not being able to link back to your YouTube or eBay store, like it's one thing if like the handle wasn't available everywhere. Like I get it, but like having that one brand, putting your face out there too on YouTube, I think builds some of that maybe intimacy that you wouldn't get through Instagram unless you're like sharing a lot of like videos and pictures, and you don't need to share personal stuff about your family. This is just about like bringing yourself forward. And I think it's a step in the right direction in like proving out some of your integrity. Because sometimes I sniff out some of these things as like red flags once I start to see like, the guy's name from his PayPal account from what he paid me from doesn't match this, and he's asking me to send something to a different address, and it's just like,
interesting.
who are you? Like you got to look at everything, like the followers, the activity on like all these platforms, and trying to build a picture of who this person is. They could be talking about how they have a son and how he's going to really enjoy that card, but can you really trust anything that you hear from a stranger? Next topic, Bowman Chrome 2023. We had a couple things going on. We had a planned bounty for a Babe Ruth 1/1 retrofractor first prospect, whatever you want to call it, first Bowman Babe Ruth card. $200,000 DA Card World was offering, and then we've got the not planned but reactive, whether you want to call it a marketing effort like the Babe Ruth was, or a combination of marketing and disaster cleanup. The duplicate, one-of-one non-autograph superfractors. I think there were about 90 of them that were affected. So there are 2 of each of these. There's supposed to be 1. These cards are numbered 1/1, and we are being offered by Fanatics roughly $750,000 total across all those cards. That's like between $7,000 to $9,000 on average per card. On the high end, you've got Ethan Salas. On the low end, you've got random dudes, not even necessarily first Bowmans. I've seen in some cases that you could get $3,000 for. So it's quite a lot of money. From the Babe Ruth perspective, as well as the generic one-of-ones that they printed duplicates of. That's a lot of money. You know, one of the general rules that I use, it's very loose because it's a superfractor and it's tough to drive value of it because there's only one and it's really worth whatever somebody's willing to pay at any point in time, right? But a superfractor non-auto is going to sell for, again, roughly about 40 times the blue non-auto for that same player.
Okay.
That ends up being, in almost all of these cases, way under what Fanatics is paying out for these cards. So, I mean, I don't think this is staged. I think this is a mistake they're trying to get out in front of with a solution that's more than commensurate to the original problem. More marketing, I guess. What they're doing, though, by doing this, as well as the Babe Ruth thing, is they're killing the value of the other SKU. So I checked DealerNet before we started recording. This is Wednesday. And the HTA boxes are now selling for about $250. And the regular Bowman Chrome boxes, 1 fewer auto, but you get the non-auto cards. So you get the draw of those bounties.
Mm-hmm.
Those are selling for about $270 still. Still a little bit lower than release date pricing, $5 under pre-release pricing. But usually the HTA, and coming into this year, the HTA was priced about 20 to 25% higher at about $330, and it's been flipped already. So Fanatics is cannibalizing that SKU by pushing these bounties. I don't know, man. What do you think about all this?
I mean, do they have a choice? They don't have a choice. They have to react to that. I mean, what do you do? I mean, I agree with you. I don't think there's any funny business going on because the Bowman Chrome product is like the lead product for Topps. I mean, that's where everybody hangs out. They don't have to do anything to, push that product even further. I mean, are they losing a lot of money? I mean, I don't know, but it does drive interest in the hobby box. I mean, it does. I mean, the HTAs are great, but you kind of cannibalize the HTA box. I don't know. I just don't feel like I feel like Fanatics is trying to get their arms around this whole hobby. I feel like they just went in and took money. It's like it's equivalent to someone going, I have all the money in the world, I can buy whatever I want, but then you go and buy all the base cards instead of the cards that matter. You don't do the proper research to understand how the hobby operates, all the different, nuances that matter to the collector, and you just inject capital into everything and go, we'll just outspend everybody. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be better at it. And I feel like you see this with last year with the Topps Chrome debacle and trying to overcome that with the hobby light boxes. And okay, we'll send these silver packs out. And I don't know, not prepared, didn't understand the landscape, didn't understand the demographic, the business you were getting into. We're just going to spend into it because there's an opportunity.
Yeah, so I give them a little bit of credit for some of the things they've done. So you look at some of these, they're not bounties, but they're innovation attempts. You've got the frozen fractors, those cards. I think that might be a failed innovation. They might end up backing away from. That's the beauty of an innovation. You can just kill it and move
Right.
on, and the next product you just don't offer it, or you offer something different. Um, the taco fractor, I'd say like still like maybe not an overwhelming no, but like most of the hobby laughed at it. We still don't know
Yeah.
what the benefit is for that card, but hey, they still sell for decent money. So
I
one of my customers pulled a Braden Shoemake rookie, and it's like a $250 card, I think, at least. So there's only 5 of them, but it still does add value long term, even if the taco fractors go down over time. Whether or not that's linked to people realizing what the actual benefit of holding that card or using that card is affects that. I assume that there'll be some value reduction in time with some of these newer innovations that are just hot right now, especially as more of this product gets opened. But it's still a way to add value to the product. And as soon as you get an innovation where 50% of the hobby doesn't bash it from the get go, that means that it's successful because you've always got the outspoken minority on blowout, right? People holding their pitchforks up and, like, how would you do this? Like, this is crazy. This is stupid. You're overprinting this. It's another contrived parallel. But, after seeing some comment responses to Neo, who brought up the Babe Ruth retrofractor and kind of saying how like he didn't get it, he thinks it's kind of stupid. The comments were kind of mixed on his video, and he had a lot of people, vintage collectors, that kind of understood in the appeal for it. Like, yeah, I could see how that would be an interesting card, or if I'm a dealer at a show, I could see how that would be more liquid and more useful at this point, more relevant than anything else in my display case. So introducing with those retrofractors, just like 3 players at a time. We'll see if they stick to that. We'll see if they create non-firsts of somebody like Babe Ruth, because that could really dilute what they're doing. The fact that it's mostly parallels, if not, there's a non-numbered short print variation. So sticking with like a certain number, we all know that if this becomes popular, they're just going to increase the number of parallels with anything they do. But
Right.
I still think in the meantime, like, I mean, if like half the people have no issue with it, it adds value long term to the product. I like it if I'm opening the product. I like it if I'm stashing the product. These bounties that have like a known or unknown, but temporary, right, existence where they end at some point in time, whether it's the Topps Chrome MVP buybacks. I also like that if I'm opening it, but I don't like it so much if I'm holding it, because I know if there is an abrupt end date to this extra value that you're getting out of the boxes, and I think that's also the case with these one-of-one non-auto superfractors, then it's going to affect the value of the box in the long term. It's going to go right down once that promotion's over. Fanatics is going to be motivated to do more of these short-term promotions where their incentive, it's really tied to their incentive to get rid of product as quickly as possible. And any sort of benefit, they don't really care if that is something that the next seller down the line can take advantage of. They don't care if the hobby shop can also take advantage of that. It's just that primary transaction, their inventory as they're selling it, to artificially help increase demand, help stop prices from falling or increase prices.
Mhm.
I think with Bowman Chrome, what they've done here, like you mentioned, they shouldn't need help to sell that product. Prices are still coming down, really, for both of those SKUs, even despite these bounties. I think with Bowman Chrome, they might have overplayed their hand a little bit. And with Topps Finest, with Topps Chrome, they did a better job controlling the supply at the beginning, like allocating a little bit here in week 1, a little bit here in week 2. And they opened up the floodgates a little bit, I think, with the supply and how much they allocated in the first few weeks of Bowman Chrome. And that might be another reason why they came in strong with these extra disaster relief bounties.